There is a kind of life that does not move forward. It does not grow. It does not end. It simply continues. Quietly, endlessly. To live forever is not always to live more. Sometimes it is to remain, while everything else fades. And in that stillness, where time no longer carries you, something begins to change. Not the world, but the one who stays. Because immortality, when it is quiet enough, begins to feel less like a gift and more like a room with no door. So tonight, let us begin gently with a story that moves slowly, without hurry, without noise. This is Boring Classics, and tonight we return to Dracula, but not as you remember him. Far from the world below, beyond the reach of roads or voices, there stands a castle that does not belong to time. It rises from the cliffs as if it has always been there. Not built, but left behind. The wind moves around it, but never through it, as though even the air has learned to keep its distance. Its windows hold a faint glow, not warm enough to welcome, only enough to suggest that something remains inside. And from below, it does not look abandoned. It looks as though it is waiting. Inside, the castle does not unfold. It deepens. Corridors stretch into shadow, turning without direction, as though they were not designed to lead anywhere at all. Each doorway opens into another silence, and each room seems to remember a purpose it no longer fulfills. Nothing feels empty, and yet nothing feels alive. It is not absence, but suspension, as if the castle itself is holding something in place. Carefully, patiently, refusing to let it fade. There is no sound here, not even the kind that usually hides beneath silence. No distant movement, no shifting floorboards, no breath behind closed doors. And yet, it does not feel empty. The silence seems to hold itself, steady, attentive, as though it is aware of being heard. It does not settle around you. It surrounds you, gently, completely, until you begin to wonder. Not what is missing, but what is still there. There are objects here, carefully arranged, undisturbed. Chairs remain where they were left. Tables wait without purpose, and curtains hang as though they have forgotten the wind. Nothing is broken. Nothing is abandoned. And yet, nothing is used. It is not decay that fills these rooms, but preservation, as if life once passed through here, and something chose to keep its shape, without allowing it to continue. Time does not pass here. At least, not in the way it does elsewhere. The candles burn, but never seem to shorten. The shadows shift, but never quite move. Moments do not follow one another. They linger, stretching gently into something that no longer feels like time at all. And within this stillness, there is no urgency, no sense of before or after, only a quiet, unbroken now that refuses to end. And then, into this stillness, someone arrives, not from within, but from the world that still moves, still changes, still forgets. Jonathan Harker steps across the threshold, carrying with him the quiet rhythm of ordinary life. His breath, his movement, even the sound of his steps, feel almost out of place here, as though he has entered something that was not meant to receive him. At first, nothing seems to happen. The rooms remain as they were. The air unchanged, the silence unbroken. And yet, something begins to feel different. Not in what can be seen, but in what is sensed. Jonathan pauses more often now, listening without knowing why. He turns slightly, as though something has just passed behind him. Though nothing is there, the stillness is no longer empty. It begins to feel attentive, as if the castle, in its quiet, is no longer simply surrounding him, but observing. It is not one thing, but many small things. A door that seems closed, but was open before. A candle that flickers, though there is no wind. A shadow that lingers a moment too long, or fades too slowly to feel natural. None of it is enough to name. None of it is enough to prove. But together, they begin to gather into something else. A quiet understanding, just beyond thought, that this place does not behave like the world outside. And whatever rules exist here, they are not meant to be seen, only felt. And then, without announcement, he is no longer alone. There is no sound of approach, no door opening, no step upon the floor. Only a presence, already there. Jonathan turns and sees him, a figure standing just beyond the light, composed, still, as though he has been waiting. Not for a moment, but for something much longer. There is nothing sudden in him, nothing that startles. And yet, there is no question. This is the one who belongs here. When he speaks, it is not loud, but it carries. His voice is measured, deliberate, each word placed with care, as though language itself has weight. There is courtesy in his tone, quiet formality that feels older than habit. He welcomes Jonathan, not warmly, but precisely. Every gesture is controlled, every movement contained. Nothing is unnecessary. Nothing is accidental. And in that careful restraint, there is something unfamiliar. Not a lack of humanity, but something that has moved beyond it. As they speak, it becomes clear that he is not a man of many words. He listens more than he answers. And when he does speak, it is often only to guide the conversation, rather than join it. But his attention does not wander. It rests on Jonathan, steadily, without interruption. Not curious, not impatient, simply fixed. It is the kind of gaze that does not search, because it already knows where to look. And after a while, it begins to feel less like being observed, and more like being studied. There are moments, small and easily missed, when something feels out of place. A detail mentioned only once, returned to with perfect clarity. A question answered before it is fully asked. He speaks of distant places, customs, habits, not as a visitor might, but as someone who has watched them for a very long time. Not from within, but from afar. There is knowledge in him, precise and complete, yet untouched by experience. And slowly, without a single clear moment of realization, a quiet thought begins to form, that he understands the world, not by living in it, but by watching it. At first, it seems like nothing at all. A meal is prepared, carefully arranged, placed between them. Jonathan eats, slowly, out of politeness, aware of being watched. And across from him, the Count remains still. His hands rest lightly on the table, his posture unchanged, his attention unwavering. He does not reach for the food. He does not lift a glass. He does not eat. And yet, he does not explain, as though there is nothing unusual in it. As though this, too, is simply the way things are. It happens not during conversation, but in a quieter moment. Jonathan stands before a mirror, adjusting something small, unaware of anything behind him. The room is still. And then, a voice, close, sudden, just behind his shoulder. He looks up, not to turn, but to see. And in the mirror, there is only himself. The space behind him remains empty. And yet, the voice is still there, still near. He turns then, slowly, and the Count stands exactly where the reflection should have been. There are moments when something in him no longer feels restrained. Not in expression, not in voice, but in what he does. Jonathan notices it first in small details. A door that should resist, opening without effort. The handle does not turn with strain. The wood does not creak in protest. It simply yields. Later, something heavier is moved, something that should require both hands, perhaps even hesitation. But the Count lifts it with ease. Not quickly, not forcefully, only, completely. And that is what unsettles it most. Because there is no effort in it. No tension, no shift of breath. Only a quiet certainty that the world will give way when touched. He does not move through the castle as a guest. He moves as though nothing here exists apart from him. Doors are never locked when he approaches. Passages never confuse him. Even the dimness seems to arrange itself. Just enough for him to see. Jonathan begins to notice how little the Count searches. He does not hesitate before turning, does not pause to remember. Each step is already certain, as though the castle has been learned so completely. It no longer needs to be navigated. And sometimes, it feels like more than familiarity. As if the walls themselves are aware of him. As if the doors do not open because he wills them. Because they were never meant to resist him at all. there are long stretches of time where he does nothing at all. He sits in the same place, or stands near the edge of the room. His posture does not shift. His hands remain where they are. Even his breathing seems to disappear into the quiet. Jonathan watches him once, for longer than he intends, waiting for movement, for some sign of distraction or restlessness. But none comes, and slowly, that stillness begins to feel less like absence and more like intention, as though remaining unmoving is not passive, but chosen, held, sustained with the same precision as everything else. And then, one night, the silence shifts. Not suddenly, not in a way that can be named, but enough to be felt. Jonathan wakes without reason. The room is the same, the candle still burning low, the walls unchanged. And yet, the air feels different. Softer, warmer, almost as though something has entered the space without passing through the door. He does not hear it. He does not see it. But he knows, in the same way one senses a presence in darkness, that he is no longer alone. They do not arrive in a single moment. There is no clear beginning, only a gradual forming. At first, there is only a suggestion, a softness in the air, a shift in light. Then shapes begin to gather, not stepping forward, but appearing where there was nothing before. 3 figures, pale against the dimness, outlined more by feeling than by sight. Their presence does not break the silence. It becomes part of it. And for a moment, Jonathan does not feel fear, only a strange stillness, as though something long expected has finally taken form. Their beauty is not immediate. It does not strike like brightness. It settles slowly, like something remembered, rather than newly seen. Their faces are calm, their expressions gentle, almost kind. Nothing in them appears threatening. And yet, something beneath that softness does not rest. It lingers just beyond comfort, like a note held too long, like a smile that does not quite belong to warmth. Jonathan finds himself drawn toward them, not by trust, but by something quieter, something that does not ask to be understood. They do not walk. There is no sound of fabric against the floor, no shift of weight, no step to follow. Instead, their movement feels continuous, as though they are already where they are going, and only revealing it slowly. Their forms pass through the dim light without disturbing it. The air does not resist them. It yields, quietly, without trace. And as they draw nearer, the space between them and Jonathan begins to feel uncertain. Not because it closes quickly, but because it no longer feels fixed at all. Distance becomes something softer, something that can dissolve. When they speak, it is not directed. The sound does not come from one place. It surrounds him. Soft, close, almost within reach of his own thoughts. Each word feels less like language and more like suggestion. There is no need to understand it fully, only to follow it. Their voices move as they do, circling gently, never settling. And in that movement, something begins to take hold. Not through force, but through invitation. A closeness that feels chosen, even when it is not. Beneath that softness, something begins to reveal itself. Not in their expressions, which remain gentle, unchanged, but in their intention. A quiet hunger. It does not rush. It does not demand. It waits. Patient, certain, inevitable, as though time itself belongs to it. And as they lean closer, that hunger becomes easier to feel. Not as danger, but as something that has already decided. Something that does not need permission. Jonathan does not move. Not because he cannot, but because something in him no longer resists. The fear that should be there feels distant. Muted. Replaced by something quieter. A softness that settles into his thoughts and slows them. The moment stretches, becomes gentle, almost peaceful, as though yielding would not be loss, but rest, as though giving in would mean no longer needing to decide. And then, suddenly, he is there, not entering, not approaching, simply present. The Count stands between them, unmoving, absolute, and the atmosphere changes at once. The softness withdraws. The air tightens. His voice is not raised, but it ends everything. He belongs to me. No anger. No urgency. Only certainty. And the moment breaks. After they are gone, the silence returns. Not gradually. All at once. As though nothing had ever disturbed it. The room settles back into stillness. The candle burns as it did before. The air becomes unchanged. And yet, something remains. Not a presence, but a trace. Like warmth left behind after a hand is withdrawn. Jonathan feels it in the quiet, in the space around him, in the absence that is not entirely empty. And slowly, the castle becomes what it was before. Calm, contained, unchanged. The Count does not remain. He leaves as quietly as he appeared. And when he is gone, there is no sign that he was ever there at all. No sound fading. No movement trailing behind him. Only absence, but not the same kind as before. This absence feels deliberate, chosen, as though presence and absence are not opposites for him, but states he moves between. And somewhere within the castle, unseen, unmoving, he continues to exist. Time does not seem to touch him, not in the way it touches others. There is no sign of passing. No fatigue. No chain. No fading. His movements remain exact. His voice remains steady. And the days, if they are days at all, do not seem to move him forward. They collect, quietly, without weight, as though time, in this place, has lost its direction, and simply remains. There is a feeling, difficult to name, but impossible to ignore. That he has been here for a very long time. Not in years, not in memory, but in something deeper. In the way he moves, without hesitation. In the way he speaks, without searching for words. In the way nothing surprises him. It is not knowledge alone, but familiarity. Stretched beyond what should be possible, as though everything has already happened, and he is only continuing. There is no one here like him. Not within these walls. Not beyond them. He speaks, but not to be answered. He observes, but is not observed in return. And in that difference, something becomes clear. He does not belong among others. Not anymore. Not in the way he once might have. There is distance in him. Not created, but accumulated. A separation that cannot be crossed. Because it was never meant to be. There are others within these walls. They move. They speak. They exist. And yet, they do not remain. Their presence is fleeting, appearing only when needed, and disappearing just as easily. They do not linger. They do not stay. And they do not share the same stillness. Whatever they are not companions. Not in the way time requires. Not in the way presence becomes familiarity. Because to remain, as he does, is to exist without equal. There is order here. Everything moves as it should. Nothing resists for long. And in that order, there is a kind of perfection. A stillness that never breaks. A structure that never fails. But it is not connection. It does not change. It does not respond. It simply obeys. And perhaps, after enough time, control begins to resemble companionship, even when it is not. And so, something begins to shift. Not in urgency, not in need, but in direction. This place, unchanged, complete, has become finished. There is nothing more to remain for. Nothing left to discover. And beyond these walls, the world continues. Changing. Forgetting. Renewing itself without pause. Perhaps it is not desire that draws him outward, but the absence of anything left within. He does not leave without preparation. What he takes with him is not wealth, not objects, but earth, dark soil, gathered carefully, preserved in wooden boxes. It is carried, not as burden, but as necessity. Something of where he has been must remain with him, as though he cannot exist without it, as though even immortality requires a place to return to. The castle does not react. It does not resist his leaving. It does not acknowledge it at all. The same silence remains. The same stillness, as though nothing within it has changed. And perhaps, for the castle, nothing has. He moves toward departure, carrying with him what cannot be left behind. And behind him, the place remains, waiting, not for return, but for continuation. It does not come all at once, not as a sudden thought or a clear conclusion. It forms slowly, in fragments, in the spaces between what has already happened. Jonathan begins to see the pattern, not in events, but in absence, in what never changes, in what never opens. And quietly, without needing to be spoken, the understanding settles. He is not a guest here. He has never been. He begins to test the space. Not openly, not with urgency, but carefully. A door that does not open. A window that does not lead anywhere. Corridor that returns him to where he began. Each attempt is quiet, measured, but the result is always the same. There is no path outward, only movement. Within, the castle reveals itself, not by changing, but by remaining the same. Nothing locks, nothing bars his way, and yet, nothing allows him to leave. It is not confinement by force, but by design. A space that permits movement, but not escape. And within it, every path leads inward, not outward, never outward. And now, what he is becomes clearer, not through revelation, but through accumulation. Every detail, every absence, every quiet impossibility, they begin to align. He is not bound by the same rules, not limited in the same ways. And what once felt like mystery now feels like certainty. Something ancient, something outside the living world. The movement begins quietly, not announced, not explained, but evident. Boxes are gathered, objects moved. The castle shifts, not in structure, but in purpose. Something is ending. Something is preparing to continue. Elsewhere, there are many ways to be alone. Some are chosen, some are given, and some simply remain. To live forever is not always to live fully. Sometimes it is to continue, without end, without change, without equal. And perhaps what we fear is not the darkness itself, but the quiet that remains when nothing else does. Perhaps that is why Dracula lingers. Not because he is frightening in any simple way. Not because he emerges from darkness, or speaks in strange rooms, or moves beyond the ordinary laws of life. But because beneath all of that, there is something recognizably human. Not goodness, not innocence, but longing. A refusal to disappear. A refusal to release what time has already taken. He gathers earth around him. He carries the past with him. He crosses countries, languages, centuries, and still he is not at rest. And perhaps that is the quieter sadness within the story. That immortality does not free him from loneliness. It deepens it. Time does not heal him. It only leaves him further behind the living world, unable to join it fully, unable to leave it entirely. So he remains, watching, wanting, taking. And perhaps what makes him tragic is not that he has escaped death, but that he has escaped nothing else. And so, the castle grows quiet once more. The sea is far away now. The mountains are still. And the long night, at last, begins to rest. Perhaps that is enough for now. Not complete understanding. Not perfect safety. Only this small return to stillness. The candle burns lower. The book lies open for a moment longer. Its pages quiet beneath the warm light. And somewhere beyond the window, the world continues in darkness. Gentle, distant, half asleep. So tonight, let the story close softly. Let the shadows remain only shadows. Let the silence be kind. And let the night keep what belongs to it. Thank you for listening. Rest well. And when you are ready, we will open another book. Good night.